Galatians 5:24. I'm going to read it in the Amplified Classic first. It says, "And those who belong to Christ," say that's me. "Those who belong to Christ have crucified the flesh." Now this isn't on the screen, but scratch it down. The only thing, say the only thing. The only thing that Jesus did not defeat on the cross was your flesh, because he would have had to override your will for that. And he won't do that. So the only thing that Jesus did not defeat on the cross was your flesh. You have to do that. And so Paul is telling you how. He said, first of all, you've got to belong to Christ. Say, that's me. Those who have belonged to Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and appetites and desires. Now, my favorite is the Living Bible. It says, those who belong to Christ have nailed their natural evil desires to his cross and crucified him there. Say, I belong to Christ. Now, Paul said, if you belong to Christ, you will crucify. What does it mean to crucify something? It means to kill it. And the crucifixion is not like, a casual killing. It's the most brutal murder possible done by the Romans in that time period when Jesus lived. It's horrible. And so that's what Paul said. That's how you need to treat your flesh. Write down 1 Corinthians 9:24-27. Paul said, I keep my body under. Like I treat it harshly, so that I'm not going to be disqualified from the plan that God has for your life. Guys, just because you're saved doesn't mean you're fit. And just because you're saved doesn't mean that you're going to hear well done, or that you're going to experience the kingdom of heaven. That looks a certain way. So it's important that we realize that we have a responsibility. Turn to your neighbor and say, be responsible. Write this down. Identity produces consecration. Meaning when I know who I am, it changes the way I live. When you make the team, your schedule changes. And now you've got commitments that you didn't have before. You've got to get up earlier. You've got to stay after later. You have responsibilities. On game day, there's certain things you have to wear. There's certain things that you have to do. Your weekend looks different when you make the team. Well, guys, when you make Jesus the Lord of your life and you belong to him, say, I belong to him. That requires something of you. And that's what consecration is. Paul said in Galatians 2:20, I've been crucified with Christ. In him, I have shared his crucifixion. It's no longer I who live. So if you no longer live, what happened? You died. If you don't live anymore, you died. It's no longer I who live, but Christ the Messiah lives in me. And the life I now live in the body, I live by faith and by adherence to and reliance on and complete trust. Everyone say complete trust in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself up for me. I want you to write this down. He died so I could live, and when I die, I actually live. He died so I could live, and when I die, I actually live. He died so I could live, and when I die, I actually live. Once you have that, I want you to go to Mark chapter 8. It's not going to be on the screen. We're going to look at 4 verses here. Mark chapter 8, verses 34-38. Say, I belong to Christ. And if you're in here tonight or you're watching online and you've never made Jesus the Lord of your life, we're going to give you the opportunity to do that. But once you do that, once you're in the family or once you're on the team, guys, that changes things. That sacrifice changes everything. But it's the changes you make after receiving him as Lord and Savior that determine what you experience. Okay? If you make the team, but then you don't ever show up for practice, are you going to experience the benefits of being on that team? You're probably not going to get to play. You're probably not going to travel. What if you don't keep your eligibility? What if you don't keep your grades where they're supposed to be? Right? There's conditions to experiencing what God has provided for you. You have to want it. Say, I want it. So in Mark 8:34, when he had called the people unto him with his disciples. So this was everybody. This wasn't just the 12. This was for everybody. This isn't just for people called to the full-time ministry. This is for everybody. Say everybody. And when he had called the people unto him with his disciples, he said, whoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever will save his life will lose it. But whoever will lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, he will save it. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. I don't want to miss these moments with him that actually last forever because of some natural, temporary, high school, middle school pleasure, right? So here's the thing. If you belong to him, Paul said, you've got to crucify these natural evil desires. You've got to nail them to the cross, so to speak, and leave them there. So I want you to write this down. You die at your hand or the enemy's hand. Guys, one way or the other, you're going to die. You want to control it. You want to control it. And I'm going to tell you what that means. I'm going to look at two people that did it the right way and two people that did it the wrong way. And I want you to decide tonight you're going to do it the right way. You die at your hand or at the enemy's hand. You either crucify your natural evil desires or the enemy takes you out. You either walk after the Spirit and crucify the flesh, or you walk after the flesh and lose the benefits of a Spirit-filled life. And if you don't live a Spirit-filled life, what do you end up with? The curse. Everything that the enemy's doing. And what is he doing according to John 10:10? He's coming to steal, he's coming to kill, and ultimately he's coming to destroy. That's the same as death. The enemy doesn't just want you to have a bad day. He wants to destroy your life. So you either decide, no, I crucify my flesh and I find myself in a place of protection and surrender to the King of Kings. And now he will back me. He will protect me. Or you do your own thing and you make yourself subject and vulnerable to the curse, right? Let's look at Moses. Go in your Bibles to Numbers chapter 20. And we're going to read several verses. So they're not going to put these on the screen because I want you to follow along in your own Bible as you read these verses. Numbers chapter 20. And we're going to look at Moses. Now, Moses had faithfully led the people of Israel out of Egyptian bondage and into the outskirts. Everyone say the outskirts. Man, the outskirts kind of bring hope, don't they? Like we're almost there. Y'all, road trips are no joke. You know what I mean? So they're kind of on the outskirts. They're not all the way in yet, but they're on the outskirts of the promised land. Like they're so close. Everyone say so close. In verse 1, the people of Israel arrived in the wilderness of Zin in April, and they camped at Kadesh, where Miriam died and was buried. There was not enough water to drink at that place, so the people again rebelled against Moses and Aaron, and a great mob formed. Verse 3, and they held a protest meeting. That's the worst. When you get together and you complain about how bad your leaders are doing, right? I don't recommend that. You and your siblings get together, say, hey, mom and dad, we need a meeting. You guys aren't doing a good job. You're not meeting our expectations. That's literally what the people of Israel are doing. Like Moses, we don't really like your leadership. Okay, we're tired of wandering around out here. We're thirsty. We're hungry. They said, would that we too had died with our dear brothers the Lord killed. That they shouted at Moses. You have deliberately brought us into this wilderness to get rid of us along with our flocks and our herds. Was that the agenda? No. When people talk mess, does it kind of have an opportunity to rub your flesh the wrong way? Right? So that's basically what they're doing. They're basically talking mess, and Moses is going to have a decision to make. Why did you ever make us leave Egypt and bring us here to this evil place? Where is the fertile land of wonderful crops, the figs, the vines, the pomegranates you told us about? There's not even enough water to drink. Moses and Aaron, verse 6, turned away and went to the entrance of the tabernacle, where they fell downward before the Lord, and the glory of Jehovah appeared to them. And he said to Moses, get Aaron's rod, and you and Aaron must summon all the people as they watch. Speak. Everyone say, speak. Speak to that rock over there and tell it to pour out its water. You will give them water from a rock, enough for all the people and all the cattle. So Moses did as instructed. Ish. Everyone say ish. He took the rod from the place where it was kept before the Lord. Then Moses and Aaron summoned the people to come together at the rock. He did the next right thing, second thing. And he said, listen, you rebels, must we bring you water from this rock? Then Moses lifted the rod, third right thing, but then he struck it. He wasn't supposed to hit it. He was supposed to speak to it. He hit it twice, water gushed out, and the people and their cattle drank. But verse 12 says, but the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not believe me and you did not sanctify me in the eyes of the people, you will not bring them into the land that I have promised them. So write it down. Moses let his emotions keep him from the promised land. Do you know that many teenagers, many adults all over the world keep their emotions? Well, I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like going to church. I don't feel like it's doing any good. I don't feel like reading my Bible. I don't feel like it's doing any good. I don't feel like giving my offerings. I don't feel like serving. They let their emotions override their principles and override the promises of God. And because Moses was mad, and guys, if we're being honest, did he have a right to be mad? I mean, they were kind of like getting on his nerves. It was kind of like they were complaining, and it wasn't like this was the first time they had been rebellious. But guys, say this after me, there's no excuse. You have to decide to do the right thing because it's the right thing, and out of your love and relationship with the Father, regardless of what anybody else does. If nobody else goes with me, I'm going to go all the way with God. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, with or without other people. Write it down. We say it all the time as pastors, as leaders. People don't change us. And guys, that's something that you've got to decide. Otherwise, you'll let your emotions take you out of the promised land. You've got good relationships with your friends at church, then all of a sudden things turn sour. Guys, things turn sour. You can fix it. People have bad days. People say ugly things. People go through some weird seasons. Right? But you can't emotionally make decisions at the cost of following Jesus and expect to enjoy what he provided. You're playing right into the enemy's hand. And guess what? He knows exactly which buttons to push. And he's going to keep pushing those buttons. And how does he know? Because he can read your thoughts? No. How does he know? Because he can read your mind and he knows your heart? No. Because he's watching your responses. So every time you have an emotional outburst, he watches that. And he's like, oh, okay, let me make a little note. Have you ever wondered why the same things keep annoying you? The same people keep bugging you. And even if it's a different person, but it's the same conversation or the same criticism or the same rude comment. Why is that? Because the enemy knows if I push that button, they get discouraged. If I push that button, it's easy for them to sin. If I push that button, it's easy for me to get them depressed and to get them from coming to church, to keep them from watching the right things and listening to the right things. He can't read your mind. He doesn't know your thoughts, but you're playing right into his hands with your emotional responses. However, Jesus did not. He killed himself. He killed himself. In John 10:18, it says, no one can kill me without my consent. I lay down my life. So write this down. Jesus didn't let his emotions keep him from accomplishing his purpose. Guys, in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus said, I don't want to do this. We act like it's like, oh, that was Jesus. He's the Son of God. It was just easy for him to be crucified. No, it wasn't. He did what he did as a man, not as the Son of God. He did what he did as a man. He felt that. He felt that. Have any of you guys ever stapled your finger before, like with a staple gun? Imagine that times like 5,000 with a big nail in both of your wrists and nails in your feet. Have any of you guys ever stepped on a nail before? Have any of you had to go to the hospital and get the nail removed? Guys, the pain that he endured in his body, he didn't want to do that. He literally prayed in the garden, like, if there's any way to do something different, let's do something different. He willfully laid down his life. And guys, if you don't willfully lay down your life, your agenda, you're going to die one way or the other. You're either going to choose to do it or the enemy's going to take you out. So Jesus chose, I'm going to be obedient. And what happened? Write down Philippians 2:5-8. The Bible says, because he made himself a servant and of no reputation, he was exalted and given a name above every name. Now, you're not going to be given the name above every name. That spot's already taken. But you will accomplish and receive eternal reward when you do in your life now. Everyone say now. Turn to your neighbor and say right now. When you do in your life right now what he wants you to do, instead of what everybody else is doing, you're going to be exalted for that. You may feel like you're missing out right now. You may feel like you're the laughing stock of your family, but how do you think Jesus felt as he hung naked on a cross, watching people mock him, watching people spit on him? Quit feeling sorry for yourself. He's already taken this on for you, and if he can do it, you can do it. Anything that he did, you can do. So you decide. You either crucify your natural evil desires yourself, or the enemy's going to take you out. Okay, let's look at 2 more people. Number 3, Samson. Enemy got him, y'all. Enemy got him. Go to Judges 16. We're going to read the whole story. You die or he takes you out. I choose to take matters into my own hand. Because either way, you're going to die. Pastor Faye said the only thing that would make this illustration better in this casket is if she laid in it and then I opened it. And I'm like, what would make that better? It's weird. Go to kids' church. Like, you're not a part of what we're doing in here. Like, you're not in this vibe right now, okay? Judges chapter 16, one day. Everyone say one day. Guys, but here's the thing. Every day matters. I've been in youth ministry long enough to have had multiple conversations with people. It was just one time. It only takes one time. And then you're preggers. It only takes one time. You know what I mean? If you didn't take the first hit, there would never be a second hit. If you didn't go to the first party, there's a good chance you would have never got an invite to the second party. It only takes one time. It only takes one time. One day, Samson went to the Philistine city of Gaza, and he spent the night with a prostitute. Well, that's not a good idea. Okay, it's not a good idea. It's just not a good idea. Word soon spread that he had been seen in the city, so the police were alerted. Many men of the city lay in wait all night at the city gate to capture him if he tried to leave. In the morning, they thought, when there's enough light, we'll find him and we'll kill him. Samson stayed in bed with the girl until midnight. Wow. Then he went out to the city gates and lifted them with the 2 gateposts right out of the ground. He put them on his shoulders and carried them to the top of the mountain across from Hebron. You know, guys, here's the thing. Sometimes it takes a while for sin to catch up with you. And that's the exact plan of the enemy. It's like that first time you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't get caught. Like nobody knows. But guys, the most important person knows. He knows, right? And so he sleeps with a prostitute all night long, but he still has his strength. And that's kind of what you think. Okay, you come to youth group and you're like that feeling in your stomach. You're like, oh my God, everybody knows. Everybody knows. And then like nobody knows. Nobody says anything. Or like maybe the one person, but it's like their life's crappier than yours, so you're safe. You know what I mean? And don't act like you haven't thought that. You know what I mean? Like they were there and everyone's like, okay, we're good. Like PC doesn't know. Here's a thought for you. I may not know. And here's number 2. I don't want to know. I like the world that I live in where everybody loves the Lord. And everyone's listening to Carmen and other Christian music, okay? So catch me not walking up to you and grabbing that earbud. Okay, that's Pastor Greg's job. It's not that I'm scared, but when you've been doing this for this long, you want to hold on to your hope. You know what I'm saying? All right, so anyway, later, now he falls in love with a girl named Delilah. What is wrong with this guy? No, it's like that guy that loves everybody. You're only a sophomore and you've already had 14 girlfriends. And you've said you love them to all of them. Some people are like, I love you sluts. They say, I love you right away. You know what I mean? It's like you've been talking to the girl for a week, you already love her? Guys, I get it. I've been through the Starbucks line before and so used to telling people I love them, I said I love them. That's why I stopped going. I'm like, because they don't, some of them don't even know their identity. So if I'm going to get a bad rap. If I can't keep my mouth shut and I keep going through the Starbucks, someone else has got to go get the Starbucks. You know what I'm saying? But you've already loved 14 different girls. You've given them your heart. Your heart's broken. He just left that one prostitute and later on, guys, that doesn't even seem like a long time. Later on. That just causes problems in the youth group, okay? Because last week he liked you, and now you're mad because he liked someone else. Girls, that's why you need to keep your heart, just keep it locked up for now. So later on, He fell in love with a girl named Delilah over in the valley of Shorek, the 5 heads. And guys, listen, let me tell you something that's really important. Every time you come to youth service, we're talking to your future, not to your past. Okay, so if this is you, just look straight ahead. Thank God for his grace and his mercy. We're not judging you, but we're telling you the truth so that you can make these corrections. Okay, so the 5 heads of the Philistine nation went personally to her and demanded that she find out from Samson what made him so strong. Each of us will give you thousands of dollars for this job. See, guys, you think she's true. She ain't true. $5,000 times however many, and you're out of her heart. Delilah begged Samson to tell her his secret. Please tell me, Samson, why you're so strong, she pleaded. I don't think anyone could ever capture you, flattery. Verse 7, well, Samson replied, if I were tied, he don't trust her. If I were tied with 7 raw leather bowstrings, I would become as weak as anyone else. So she brought them in. This guy's an idiot. This guy's an idiot. And guys, honestly, I've heard Evangelist Jonathan say this. Once a guy gets focused on that target, they kind of lose. You may not be strong like Samson, but you lose strength. That's why you're supposed to not awaken those desires before their time, because you were made for that. The Bible says it's not good that man should be alone. And so there's something in you that says, okay, that's an important thing. He who finds a wife finds a good thing, but not like your sophomore year. Because then you lose all sense. And you start making stupid decisions, okay? Like if she asks you once and you tell her, if I were tied with these 7 leather raw bowstrings, and then the next day she does it. Do you know what I'm saying? Why would you tell her anything else? Why wouldn't you think I think she's trying to kill me? And then she cries and is like, you don't trust me. Why didn't you tell me? And so then he said, well, if you tie me with new ropes, are we playing games here? This is weird. So he slept again. Verse 12, the ropes. She tied him up, and then he wakes up and says, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you. You broke the ropes because that wasn't the secret. 2 times. 2 times, bro, she's tried to kill you. You told her a secret, and if it wasn't her, which we know it was, she told somebody. What is wrong with you? 3rd time. You've mocked me again, told me more lies. Now tell me how you can really be captured. Well, he said, if you weave my hair into your loom. Now, how are you going to sleep through that? Do y'all know what a loom is? Look it up later. I don't have time to show you a picture. Okay, but it's basically this weaving device. Have you ever seen basket weavers? They have that thing. That's what it is. How are you asleep and they're putting your hair in that? What is wrong with you? Is she drugging you? He wakes up. His hair's all caught up in the thing. And breaks out of it. Verse 15, how can you say you love me when you don't confide in me? She's whining. You've made fun of me 3 times now. Let's flip that around. You've tried to kill me 3 times. No one's making fun of anybody. You're trying to kill me. She nagged at him every day until he couldn't stand it any longer. And finally, he told her his secret. My hair's never been cut, for I've been a Nazirite to God since my birth. If my hair were cut, my strength would leave. Verse 18, Delilah realized that he had finally told her the truth, so she sent for the 5 Philistine leaders. Come just this once more, for this time he's told me everything. So they brought the money with them. She lulled him to sleep with his head on her lap and brought the barber, cut off his hair, and Delilah began to hit him, and could see that his strength was leaving him. Then she screamed, the Philistines are here to capture you. And he woke up and thought, I will do as before, I'll just shake myself free. But he didn't realize that the Lord had left him. So the Philistines captured him, now gouged his eyes out. Was it worth it? Gouged his eyes out, took him to Gaza, where he was bound with bronze chains and made to grind in the prison. But before long, his hair began to grow again. The Philistine leaders declared a great festival to celebrate the capture of Samson. The people made sacrifices to their god Dagon, which now all y'all know who that is, and excitedly praised him. Our God has delivered our enemy Samson to us. They gloated as they saw him there in chains. The scourge of our nation who killed so many of us is now in our power. Half drunk by now, the people demanded, bring out Samson so we can have fun, make fun of him. So he's brought from the prison, and I'm in about verse 26, to stand at the center of the temple between 2 pillars supporting the roof. Samson said to the boy who was leading him by the hand, hey, place my hands against the 2 pillars. I want to rest against them. By then the temple was completely filled with people. The 5 Philistine leaders were there, as well as 3,000 people in the balconies who were watching Samson and making fun of him. Then Samson prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord Jehovah, remember me again. Please strengthen me one more time so that I may pay back the Philistines for the loss of at least one of my eyes. Then Samson pushed against the pillars with all of his might. Let me die with the Philistines, he prayed. And the temple crashed down upon the Philistine leaders and all the people. So those he killed at the moment of his death were more than those he had killed during his entire lifetime. Later, his brothers and other relatives came down to get his body, and they brought him back home and buried him between Zorah and Eshthol, where his father Manoah was buried, and he led Israel for 20 years. So write it down. Samson did let lust and temptation keep him from the promised land. So because Samson didn't crucify his flesh himself, the enemy destroyed him with it. You're going to die one way or the other. Decide to do it on your own terms. Decide to do it on your own terms so the enemy doesn't have access to you. In small groups, did you guys get to the question that says you can't hurt a dead man? What that means is when you crucify your own flesh to the degree that you're not moved by your feelings, when people say ugly things about you, it won't move you. When people criticize you, when people hate on you for your faith, when people make fun of you, when you've already crucified your flesh, you're unfeeling to their chants. You're unfeeling to their mocks. Because you've already crucified your flesh. Otherwise, the enemy realizes, okay, that's a button I can hit. And before long, he's got you right where he wants you. Number 4, Joseph. He's the last example. Joseph, he got in the coffin, so to speak. He crucified his flesh. And because he did, the enemy couldn't take his destiny. Guys, you die so that you can live, or you try to live, and in living, you'll die. Do you understand that? If you do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it, with no consideration for the word, if you walk after the flesh and not the spirit, and do whatever you want, whenever you want to do it, the enemy has access to your destiny. But when you make a decision one day at a time to follow after him, and sometimes that means there's a big moment in your life where you have your own funeral. I'm going to tell you about mine in a minute, but let's look at Joseph. Go to Genesis 39, and I'm going to read the whole story to you so you guys don't have to put it on the screen, because if you don't know where this story is in your Bible, you want to know that. So Genesis 39, and we're going to start in verse 1. So the win tonight, be like Joseph, be like Jesus, right? You're going to die one way or the other. You either crucify your flesh, or the enemy has access to you, and he will work destruction into your life and into your relationships. When Joseph arrived in Egypt, Genesis 39 verse 1, as a captive of the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased from them by Potiphar, a member of the personal staff of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Now this man Potiphar was the captain of the king's bodyguard and his chief executioner. The Lord greatly blessed Joseph there in the home of his master, so that everything he did succeeded. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph in a very special way. So Joseph naturally became quite a favorite with him. Soon he was put in charge of the administration of Potiphar's household and all of his business affairs. At once the Lord began blessing Potiphar for Joseph's sake. All of his household affairs began to run smoothly. His crops flourished, his flocks multiplied. Potiphar gave Joseph the complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. He hadn't a worry in the world with Joseph there, except to decide what he wanted to eat. Joseph, by the way, was a very handsome young man. One day at this time, Potiphar's wife began making eyes at Joseph, right? And I don't want to put this all off on the guys. Some of you girls have been in love with like 7 guys by the time you were an 8th grader. Okay, and I got the documentation to prove it. Those little love letters and stuff. I'm like, I am the pastor, but you don't have to bring me the letters. Like, you as a parent, you need to keep the letters. I'll keep the letters. So I don't want to make it all about the guys, because this girl began making eyes at Joseph and suggested that he come sleep with her. Guys, you have to be solid. You have to be solid. Well, I didn't want to hurt her feelings. You want to hurt her life? Do you want to hurt your life? Well, she texts me and I didn't want to hurt her feelings, so I just text her back. Right, and you know she's not allowed to text you. She texts you through the Bible app. It's so weird. Guys, listen, I'm not hating on you. We didn't have a Bible app back then. We had a graphing calculator. Do you know that you can type on a graphing calculator? That's what we did. We didn't have phones. We didn't text, but we used a graphing calculator. So listen, I've already been there. Do you understand what I'm saying? Joseph refused. That's a big, maybe we should write that in our notes. Joseph refused. It's not a point, but let's make it a point. Joseph refused. If you don't take anything away tonight, Joseph refused. Your mom, dad, Graham was like, what does that mean? It's fine. Just rewatch it. That's all you need to know. Joseph refused. That's what I'm working on. Okay, there was a casket. That's it. Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in the entire household. He himself has no more authority here than I have. He's held back nothing from me except you because you're his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God. None of this. Well, my parents said it's fine. I'm talking about your relationship with God. I'm not talking about your relationship with your parents. I'm talking about your relationship with God. This would be a great sin against God. She kept on with her suggestions day after day, even though he refused to listen, and kept out of her way as much as possible. Right? Put some space. Just put some space. Well, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I think you like the attention. I think you like the attention. And you're flirting with a very vulnerable position. Your heart and their heart. So he avoided her as much as possible. Then one day as he was in the house, verse 11, going about his work, it happened, no one else was around. She came and grabbed him. She grabbed him, guys. Grabbed him by the sleeve and demanded, sleep with me. He tore himself away, but as he did, his jacket slipped off and she was left holding it. This is bad for the jury. He fled from the house. When she saw that she had his jacket and that he fled, she began screaming, wow. And when the other men around the palace came running to see what had happened, of course she's not going to say, hey, he ran off. He refused me, so she twists it. My husband had to bring this Hebrew slave to insult us. He tried to rape me. Liar. But when he screamed, I ran. He forgot to take his jacket. She kept the jacket. And when her husband came home that night, she told him her story. The Hebrew slave that you had around here tried to rape me, and I was only saved by screams. He fled, leaving his jacket behind. That's the worst. When you're the problem and you go tell your mom that guy is or that other girl is, and... Verse 19, well, when her husband had heard his wife's story, of course, he's furious. He threw Joseph in prison where the king's prisoners were kept in chains. Now, here's Joseph already sold in slavery in a foreign land where he doesn't speak the language. You know, he could have this idea like, God, you've forgotten me anyways. All my dreams have been not only delayed, but my own family has rejected me. So, man, I deserve it. Hey, nobody else wants me. My own family doesn't want me. That girl wants me. You know what I mean? Like, you just feel sorry for yourself. You make your feelings and you make your desires more important than your relationship with God. Because he refused and he said, like, I can't do this against God. The Lord was with Joseph there too in prison, was kind to him by granting him favor with the chief jailer. In fact, the jailer soon handed over the entire prison administration to Joseph so that all the other prisoners were responsible to him. The chief jailer had no more worries after that, for Joseph took care of everything and the Lord was with him so that everything ran smoothly and well. So Joseph didn't let lust and temptation keep him from the promised land like Samson did. Joseph refused. Everyone say Joseph refused. Joseph refused. So you decide tonight, you die or the enemy takes you out. But either way, death is in your future. You either crucify your flesh so that you can live, or you walk after the flesh, compromising God's ability to work his plan through your life. Because you can't go his way, your way. You're either going to walk after the spirit or you're going to walk after the flesh. They go in two totally different directions and they never meet. Say never meet. So if you're going to reroute, you have to turn all the way around. And guys, we all know in travel, it takes longer. It's way easier just to move in the right direction. So I want you to write this statement down. You have your own funeral in big ways, and then you choose every day, Lord, if there's anything in me that you can't use, show me what it is, and I'll remove it. You have your own funeral in big ways. And to be honest, I only had to have one. And I'm going to illustrate it tonight. I have a picture here. This is one of my senior pictures. Heather was going to blow it up and put it on the screen. I'm like, no, we're not. We are not blowing that up. You can come say it later. But guys, I guess I ran out of friends because I had signed this one. But my parents still had it. You know what I'm saying? You sign them. But here's the thing that's true. It still says Matthew 6:33. I'm staying the course. You know what I'm saying? But basically, here's me. And it's like, why'd you cut your hair like that? We don't know. But more importantly, you got the ORU sweatshirt on because that's where you're going. You know what I mean? And so when I was a senior in the fall semester and I determined to not go with my plan, but to go with God's plan for my life, I died in that moment. And every dream that was associated with that plan died too. Some people have had to have multiple funerals. They get engaged and they realize that wasn't God's plan for their life. They start out doing their own thing and then they have to reroute. For me, it was just the one time. And then every day after that, I just had to defend that. But honestly, that was the hardest thing. And once I had done that, guys, there have been a handful of other times in all of the many years between then and now, which will remain anonymous, where I felt like this is not what I thought it would be. But because I had already died, it wasn't strong enough to take me out. And I think many people fail in their relationship with God because it is a journey, because they really never made a once and for all decision to die. When I look at this girl in this picture, I can confidently say she died. And I can take you to the exact place of her death. I could walk you right in that ORU chapel. I could tell you the exact section that I was sitting in. I remember my exact posture, even in worship, because I had one hand lifted and I sensed so strong on the inside, this is not the place for you. And I had already been accepted and I had already received scholarship. And in that moment, I died. And I said, God, I don't want it if you're not in it. And so when I look at this girl, all the dreams, all the desires, I can't even relate to that person anymore. And so when people come at me now, it's like, I already died. You're not going to get me off track. I already died. You're not going to get me out of the will of God. I already made that decision. I already crossed over out of my idea, out of my plan, and into his plan. I want you to bow your head and close your eyes tonight.